As an educator, I have learned that the most meaningful conversations begin not when people try to win, but they stop trying to win and they start to try and understand each other. This belief is what made me desire to participate in Voice Assembly. I am Diora, I come from Uzbekistan. For the past several years, my classroom has been my laboratory for the exactly idea that the dialogue, not domination, is what changed the minds. I hold MAT ESOL, and currently I'm working as an ESOL teacher and assessment designer. And my work isn't only about teaching grammar or vocabulary, but building spaces where students are asked to defend their position. And every authentic assessment that I build asks students not that just to recall information and tell them to me, but, as I mentioned before, argue and at the same time just as genuinely listen to the positions across from them as well. During my professional development course in University of Greenwich, I experienced firsthand how real academic debate can challenge assumptions without creating division. I sat across the table with educators who completely disagree with me sometimes, and I left those rooms not defeated, but sharper. That's the muscle that I want to build in the upcoming conference. My background also includes my participation in Model United Nations, where I practiced representing the positions that were not always mine. And that taught me humility about how complicated the real conflict is. And I also have an experience with Europort and Translator Without Borders, and that volunteer works put me in the direct contact with the communities affected by crisis, displacement, and even in some cases long aftermath of war. Every war starts with the same belief. Violence can finally solve the problem that diplomacy couldn't. But history repeats every time quieter but the most uncomfortable lesson. War might end, but its consequences rarely do. They outlive treaties, they outlive generals, they outlive generations, sometimes the communities, societies that fought for them. That's why I stand firmly behind the motion that true peace can never be achieved through war. Consider what a war can do to a civilian population. Schools close, or worse, they become targets. Children who should be learning to read, instead they learn the sound that tells them to run to a shelter. Through my volunteer work, I've worked with communities, people. The volunteer work was about Translation Without Border website, and I mentioned that I had a contact with people, communities that affected by war. Every war starts with the same belief. The violence can finally solve the problem that diplomacy couldn't. But history repeats a quieter, more uncomfortable lesson every time. War might end, but its consequences rarely do. They outlive treaties, they outlive generations, they outlive societies, communities that fought them. That's why I stand firmly behind the motion that true peace can never be achieved by war. Consider what a war can do to civilian population. Schools close, or even worse, they become targets. Children who should be learning how to read, they instead learn the sound that tells them to run to a shelter. I often think of the people who are spending years to find a second war that happens after war. The war against trauma, displacement, the loss of education that they might never fully recover. If peace is dignity, the war is completely the opposite by definition. Dialogue changes people effectively than violence ever can. This is what I feel personally. In my professional life, I saw dialogue can do something that violence structurally can never do. Dialogue can change the person on the other side of the table from the inside. During discussions with my colleagues from other countries who held beliefs on religion, education, or politics, which are far from my own, I realized that disagreement shouldn't always create conflict. When people genuinely listen to each other, opposing views stop being threats, start being opportunities to learn. Violence can never do that. Violence can never force compliance. It can never force understanding. It can never build a trust. But dialogue, the slow, patient, sometimes the frustrating work of actually listening can do that. This is precisely why I believe education, dialogue-based platforms like Assembly are not only soft alternatives to peace building. They are exact mechanisms to peace building long before every conflict reaches to the war point. So let me return where I started. Peace is not built after war. Peace is built before war through justice, cooperation, understanding, dialogue, education. Why this assembly should invest in me? Well, I'm not gonna say I can change the world. I want to change the world. It overstates what all of us can do alone. It understates what we are already doing right now. Here's what I will say instead. I'll create spaces for the dialogues where every kind of voice is heard, even the voices that might be disagree with me or with someone. And I don't want Assembly to give me a reason to believe the power of the dialogue. I want it to strengthen the work that I'm already doing. As a teacher, every discussion that I facilitate has a potential to shape how next generation communicate, solve problems, understand how people are different from them. And that's not a small task. I take it seriously. So the European Voice Assembly will not be the end of my journey. It will be part of my journey, it will be part of my classroom, it will be part of my educational research, it will be part of my life, the things that I'm doing to my community. Whatever I learn in this community, in this atmosphere, I will carry back to the students who are quite literally the next generation of peace builders, whether they call themselves so or not. Thank you for your attention.